go.
Ah, there you are. Awesome.
Hey,
All right,
there we
brother.
go. Good to see you.
Awesome. Yeah, nice to connect, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well. It's just late morning here in Australia on an overcast, windy day.
Lovely, lovely. Your audio is fine. How's my audio? Is it coming through okay?
Yeah, beautiful, easy.
Awesome. So you've got a couple, just like myself. Fantastic.
There we go. I've got my camera rigged up to a music stand.
Nice. Got myself a little
There we
gimbal
go.
here. Awesome,
Oh,
awesome. Well, I'm already recording, but I'll chop and whatnot later. But
okay.
yeah, I suppose it's worth introducing yourself, Christian, for the listeners. And yeah, you and I connected through a comment on the Simon Parkes video, the insurrection video, and you were offering to give your testimony essentially to anyone who wanted to interview you. And lo and behold,
Yep.
the algorithms brought me down your way, and here we find ourselves. But yeah, before we get into all that,
Sorry, mate.
that's all right.
Okay, we should be good.
All good. So yeah, as I was saying, we connected to the comments, and I'll post a little screenshot. You wanted to kind of talk about your experience, but before we get into that, as is tradition on the EOTT podcast, Christian, we like to kind of get to know our guests a little bit. So would you be kind enough to kind of give us a bit of your background and kind of what your life was up until that point before you kind of connected and ended up working with Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess just growing up, I've always been I guess an alternative person. I grew up in rock and roll. I did backyard wrestling. I was a skateboarder. Parkour, that was another thing I was into, and all that stuff's on my YouTube channel. Actually, if you check that out, it's
Awesome.
cool. But
Yeah, I'll definitely link that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always been, just naturally anti-authoritarian, right? So that was sort of my life, just doing crazy stuff and being somewhat philosophically and politically minded. I was into, as I got into uni, which I did a cultural studies and contemporary music degree, and which was perfect for my interests. And I started getting into different types of spiritual philosophies like Gnosticism. I discovered that then, and modern Satanism was something I was really into at the time. Now, and this isn't Anton LaVey Church of Satan stuff. It's not Luciferian. Modern Satanism is basically it came about in like the 70s, and it's just basically this very loose idea of being your own sort of master. So no gods, no masters kind of thing, and you craft your own code. And that can be taken really negatively by a lot of people. Like, of course, you could just take that and just become a total hedonist and really self-destructive, destructive to others, and just say, well, so what? That's my moral code, and I'm my own god, so fuck you. I'm sorry about the language. Are we allowed to swear?
No, EOTT, everything on the table, brother. No holds barred, so you fire away. Yeah.
Okay, I take it. Free speech. Fucking awesome.
Beautiful.
All right. Yeah. So I adopted that code, but just being the way I am, I don't know. I've had a pretty positive upbringing, right? So like for me, the code I crafted that I enjoyed living with was I realized basically you treat people well and then they'll treat you well, and my modern Satanism basically became completely aligned with the tenets of like Christ, and just traditional, traditional right hand path kind of religions. And so, I sort of adopted it, but it just became, more of a label really that became sort of irrelevant as time went on. So that's my background, like just philosophically and spiritually. But then it gets intense as we get into the story about how I came across Simon Parkes. So I wasn't into any of this kind of stuff. I wasn't into conspiracy stuff at all. I wasn't into aliens at all. I had no awareness of the true deep occult. I had no awareness of groups like the Templars, the Illuminatis, the Masons, these kind of groups. So it was actually this experience that my cousins had, and this is a weird story that sparked me onto this path. And Simon Parkes, believe it or not, nowadays I'm like an anarcho-libertarian. I'm very politically active. I'm I'm a hardcore, deep conspiracy researcher for like almost a decade now. But the whole experience that sparked that off, and the actual original researcher that I discovered was actually Simon Parkes. And this is way back before any of his, like before QAnon existed or before Trump was in, you know. This is quite a while ago. I can't remember
He's
the
been about
exact
for
year.
quite a while, hasn't he? He's been on the scene for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah. And he was there for quite a while, like when I found him. And he was not talking about very much political like stuff. That was worded poorly, sorry. Was not talking very much political stuff at all. It was mostly alien spirituality, consciousness, Buddhist ideas of chakras and things like this. It was real new agey stuff, but so I'm guessing the next question you're going to ask is going to be like, yeah, how did I get in touch with Simon? So I'm probably preempting the question.
Yeah, how it kind of led up to it, if you'd be so kind. Yeah.
Yeah,
if you want to tell us about the
so
experience with your cousins, it seemed like that kind of sparked it off, you said.
it did, and it was actually, I would call it my awakening moment. Believe it or not, it's the thing that sparked me on this path of being, you know, actually just learning all the stuff that you and your viewers would already be very aware of, you know, and that I am now as well. So the experience was, we live in a very small rural town in Australia. It's just a little bit in from the coast, and it's in a deep valley. At the time, there was under 1,000 people living in the town. It's that small, and there is some weird kind of energetic stuff, and there's some local legends and things like that. But my cousins are in no way that way. Like at the stage that I was back then, I was already considered the weirdo, you know, hippie freako of the family. They were skaters. Like one of them rode a scooter. He's amazing on those razor scooters. The kid does like backflip tail whips and just insane stuff on those things. So, and they just lived at the local skate park. And that's the kind of kids they were. They're just skate park rats, you know. They're really cool dudes, really nice guys, but just really, you know, really in the 3D, just doing their thing, skating, just out of high school or whatever. So they're at the skate park late at night one night and you know what, this is nuts, but it was actually Halloween. So like, just, you know, it makes it sound stupid when you tell people, but anyway, it was actually Halloween. They were there together, and they had a friend with them, and all three of these kids recount the same story. I shit you not. So they're there late at night on Halloween, I don't know, hanging out, doing what, you know, skate park kids do late at night at the skate park. And it's right next to a creek, okay? And there's a street. So if you imagine, like, this is the skate park where I am, and there's a creek that goes across like here, and the creek goes off this way, and then there's a bridge, and the road goes this way, right? And the creek goes under that bridge. I think that kind of makes sense to your viewers.
Yeah.
That's a description. Yeah. So they're hanging out at the skate park, and up out of the bank of where this creek is walks this, they said, about a 14-foot tall figure made of solid black shadow. And you've probably heard about shadow beings, right? So you probably know where I'm going to, right? This is out in public. This is not the classic bedroom encounter. This is out in public with 3 people witnessing it, and it's huge. And they said it was hunched over, and it had long arms. And please, anyone who's watching this, if you've seen anything like this, please let me know, because I've only met a few other people that have seen this particular type of entity. But it comes up out of the creek and up the hill, and it's hunched over with these long arms and long extended fingers. And they said it walked so fast and so silent, and walks across the skate park, and they all saw it, and they freaked out, and they screamed, and it sort of noticed them and looked and stopped, went down under the bridge, and they ran across the road, across the road on this side of the bridge, the side closest to me. If you can imagine, he's in the creek under the bridge. And then they get over the other side of the bridge. They're freaking out. They're just, what the hell was that, kind of thing. And this is recorded, by the way. Connor, my cousin, had his phone running, and you can hear all this on audio, but he was so scared he didn't hold it up and shoot the thing. Like, he just had it in his hand, like, so you can't see anything. It's all movement.
High peril will do that to you. You know, you'll forget the old obvious when you're in that. I can imagine the high state of peril he would have been in.
Yeah, I guess because he had no idea of any of this kind of thing. Like they were really freaked out, and it took them years. Actually, it was like 2 years before I heard about it. So they kept it quiet for a long time. It came up after they had a couple of drinks at a Christmas lunch or something, you know. So,
Very often the case that, Christian, if I may just interject quickly, it's very
oh
often
yeah,
the
yeah,
case
yeah,
people will have, these paranormal, extra kind of, weird experiences, and often they're so mind-boggling, they just tend to keep it to themselves until eventually, through whichever kind of catalyst it comes out, and actually, there are generally other people who've had similar experiences, all across the globe,
yeah,
generally.
yeah, sure, yeah,
As you were,
gotcha.
brother.
And no, yeah, yeah, that sounds pretty common to me. Like I've come across a few other situations where that's been the case for sure,
Mm,
and it's natural, you know, like you know that people are going to think you're nuts if you bring up something like this. You know they are, and also you might not want to scare people. You know
yeah,
this kind of mentality, I guess. But it's not a mentality where just being honest, telling the truth is the primary focus, and who cares what anyone else thinks, like that. You have to, I don't know, you have to get to a certain point in yourself, I think, before you're able to just step into
yeah,
that, I think.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so as I was saying, thing runs under the bridge. They're there like freaking out. What was that? What was that? And they turn around and look at the creek, and it's still there, and it's staring at
Right,
them, and it's doing what, if you look at the research, they call it freestanding, when the thing actually
right.
stands and faces you and out in the open. And they said, okay, so it wasn't like, you, when I say it was totally black, you might imagine a humanoid kind of figure, right, with like muscles and some kind of hairless thing, or maybe a hairy thing. Nuh-uh. This thing was made of solid darkness, like just solid blackness. Like it's like any light that touched it, it just ate the light, and it's just nothing. And its eyes were apparently glowing. And this one, they said it was glowing green, which I have seen in reports. So anyway, we'll get to that. But glowing green eyes, and that's the experience. No, I shit you not. The following Halloween, they have the same experience in the same place. They went there to see if they could see it again because they associated it with Halloween, and they're all curious. And they brought some other friends with them. And if you wanted to, I could probably get Connor in touch with you and his brother Braden to just confirm this and back this up. You'll see, like, they have very little to do with this community. Connor these days is a bit curious. He's on like the anonymous Facebook page and things like that. So he's a bit curious now.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. This really woke him up too, but he's not quite as hardcore as me. I don't think. But anyway, next year, same experience. The thing comes up out of a similar spot, and apparently it actually banged on a wall. There's, next to our skate park, there's a little sports shed. It's full of croquet gear because across the creek there's a croquet court. It's a
Right.
tiny little country town, right? So yeah, I don't. Yeah, croquet is not even a thing in Australia. It's kind of weird that there's a croquet court there, but there's this mesh like bars like over the window on this croquet shed thing, and he walks up to it and bangs on it to apparently like to get their attention. That's the feeling they got. And that's when they
Yeah.
notice that he bang, 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 and he's there banging on the wall. And they freak out. And there's like two other friends now that have seen the same thing as well. And it's a very similar encounter. Another fun story is that after this encounter, their mother, once they came home freaking out, like they were really upset, and their mother's like, "What's going on? What have you been smoking? What are you on, you kids?" And what she did, once they explained the story to her, we saw this thing, this is what it looked like, this is what it did. She separated them and said, "Okay, I want you to draw what you saw."
Right.
How clever is that?
Yes.
And
Yes. You wouldn't. Yeah. Kind of logical thinking.
yeah, to I guess to confirm whether it was
What is
a
what's
hallucination
her
or.
what's her what's her occupation?
Oh, she's just what does she do? She works in like a furniture shop. She's your average,
Okay.
mum, housewife kind of.
Just had the wherewithal and the foresight to kind of excuse me, the wherewithal and the
Yeah,
foresight
yeah.
to kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
she was at the time she was thinking that they were, you know, they'd taken something. Like she was actually worried that
Yeah.
they'd had some bullshit hallucination, you know, bad trip together or something. And so
Yeah.
so she was expecting, I'm pretty sure, that draw what you saw, they're going to draw something totally different. And she'll say like, see what I mean? But they did actually both draw the exact same thing, like
Right.
exactly the same. And yeah, and that
Shit.
freaked her out. And so she believes it too now. So
Mm.
yeah, so that comes up at a Christmas dinner. I'm fascinated by this. Like this completely just, you know, blows my mind. I just remember thinking, like, gee, imagine if, you know, ghosts, creatures, you know, cryptids, aliens, like imagine if they could actually be real. And it was just a massive thing for me. Like, but I didn't believe it instantly. What I did
Yeah.
was I went and researched it like pretty heavily. And what I found was after a day or two was the term shadow people, which is a very common term, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of reports online of people who have seen these things. It's usually in the house. It's usually like in during sleep paralysis.
Sleep
You
paralysis.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, which I found I think can kind of be used as a like by skeptics and people like that as like a way to brush it off, you know, like, oh,
Mm.
they're hallucinating, it's a dream, they're in sleep paralysis. And
Yeah.
but this experience was completely lucid. They were up and about at night, like they might have had a couple of
Mm.
beers or like had maybe, I don't know, maybe had a J or something, but like they all saw
Yeah.
it, like, and twice in a row too.
There's a
So
great
yeah,
channel
so
called Cram. Sorry to interject. There's a great channel
no, you
called
go,
Cloak.
I'm raving.
No, no, not at all. I'm really fascinated. It's great. Just wanted to say before I forget, there's a channel called Cloaking Cryptids on YouTube, which is
Okay.
pretty interesting. Yeah, you might want to check that one out. I'll post a link as well.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I'm not actually much of a cryptid guy. Like given that this was my first introduction to this stuff, I never really got too much into it, but around this area, like, man, there is so much cryptid stuff going on. Like there's other reports, there's dogman reports around here that are pretty
Oh,
common.
you just took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say, I think I took a screenshot actually. I hope I still got it. There was a gentleman talking about living in I think he said Idaho, somewhere very rural, and he was talking about dogmen and his experiences, and he's like, I don't care if you believe me or if you don't, I know what I've experienced. And it's like,
Mm.
yeah, there's probably a lot more that's been kept from us as a general kind of consensus we've come to now, you know, and it's all hidden in myth and legend and sci-fi and fantasy, but a lot of that stuff is truth in plain sight, I think.
Yeah. I do think I'm pretty sure there has to be some kind of interdimensional element to these things. Or
That's my
just
understanding.
yeah, because they can't. How could you physically hide and only get, you know, like to that extent where you only get spotted here and there, and some of them seem to be like animalish, you know, they wouldn't have the
Mm.
intelligence to hide themselves away like that efficiently. So yeah, and the reports that I've heard, like they seem to show up at certain like places and times that are important. Like this thing showed up at Halloween, so you hear talks of like there's certain physical locations that at certain astrological alignments and certain times in the cycle of the year that they can open up.
Ley
And
lines and vortexes and whatnot.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's interesting. This thing showed up on a creek twice as well.
Mm.
Like, and oh, you know what's nuts? You might even be able to look this up. If you look up this town, the town's called Jamboree, by the way, Jamberoo.
Awesome name.
This is amazing. On the Google Maps photo of that creek, off the bridge, like where the bridge is over the creek, there is a shadow person in the creek. Like
Interesting.
straight up undeniably. And it was actually my cousins and their mum who actually found that, and they showed it to me. They were like, Christian, you got to see this. Look at it. And it's, yeah, for sure. It's a standing shadow person in the creek. It's amazing.
I'll have to look at that, and I'll feature it on the video screenshot in.
I wonder
Yeah,
if
for
it's,
sure.
yeah, if they haven't updated the photo, it'd still be there.
Possibly.
This was like a couple of years ago that they showed me. But
I'll
yeah,
check it
so
out. So was that like a
yeah,
catalyst
so
for you then? Was you saying?
Yeah. And the way the story continued, because I learned about what this thing was, and I looked it up on YouTube, and the most prolific speaker on the topic was definitely Simon Parkes, and he was describing the exact same things that I'd seen. In the exact same way, he would describe other encounters that people had with them, with the certain other types that you see reported online. But as well as that, he talked about the type that I saw, which is far less common. And I've almost like never seen someone describe the exact same, shape. It's only been a handful of times I've seen that.
Right.
Yeah, so that got me into him and gave him a lot of credibility in my mind, at least in terms of beings and entities and things like that. And as I got further into this research and I got into spirituality and I started meditating and things, I had a bit of an experience of my own, which I interpret as an extraterrestrial experience. But again, it could have been an interdimensional cryptid type being. And this being basically fit the exact description that Simon describes of the feline aliens, right? The feline ET race. And so, yeah, I had an experience with one of those as well, which is quite personal for me. But it wasn't anything really. Yeah, it wasn't like an abduction or anything really super intense. It's more kind of actually similar to a shadow person experience in that it sort of materialized in my room when I was kind of half asleep and half awake. But when I saw it woke me up. Beg your pardon?
Hypnagogic, and that kind of hypnagogic state, the in-between.
Yeah. But when I saw it, it did wake me up. I did wake up. I was shocked. I was like, whoa. And it was standing there, and I felt this really strange, like energetic feeling, like this kind of rush of energy through my body. It was just, yeah, I know if I go deeply into this stuff, there'll probably be people watching this that think, oh, that sounds, he's making that up. It sounds hippy dippy. It sounds whatever. But I went through a weird physical sensation.
On the flip side of that coin as well, if I may just say, Christian, there will definitely be people who resonate as well, I'm sure.
Well, I know there's so many people that have had experiences like this because I've come across a lot of them, and I've got a pretty good read on people's honesty. It's something I'm pretty good at, and I've had a lot of people say things where I get a vibe where I'm like, yeah, but then there's some people where I really feel it, and you can tell, man, when they look you right in the eyes, they look down your pupils and they tell you this happened, it was amazing, or it was terrifying, and they're staring right at you, and there's no bodily, indicators of any kind of doubt or, confusion and trying to remember the story or whatever it is they're trying to do.
Observation.
So I had this experience with this thing, and it wasn't anything major. It was more like it materialized. I woke up and it had its hand extended kind of thing. And when I reached out to sort of touch its hand, which I don't know why I wanted to do, it like disappeared. And I got up out of bed and went, and for some reason felt like I wanted to have a shower. So I had a shower. So if you want to say it's a dream or whatever, or then I'm still in that dream because I woke up and then I didn't go back to sleep. I was awake, and that was it. Like most of my night was awake from then because I was processing what had just happened. It was really weird. Yeah, and it was kind of naked, kind of 7-8 foot tall, something like that, pretty tall, but like close to a human size, but big. And it was like white fur with like blue bits down the edges. Like, it sounds so weird, but it was, that's what it looked like. And it had like a cat's face, but not like the Egyptian cat's faces you see, sort of like somewhere in between of a human. Like, it looked like if you imagine that a cat had evolved into like a humanish form. Like,
well, on that note,
that's what it looked like.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. And on that note, I'm not a proponent of evolution as such, because if you look at like Michael Cremo's work, Forbidden Archaeology, all their science, none of it adds up and is, remains that they found that just defy all their data methodologies and stuff. And, it just it blows it all out of the water. But by their own logic, if that's what they're trying to tell us about evolution, then if we as mammals have evolved into a humanoid form, then it just stands to reason that all the other types would also have evolved into a humanoid form. That's just logical reason in my mind. What,
I think so. I think so. Well, monkeys are on all fours originally. The more primitive, like less evolved monkeys, they are on all fours and they come upright. And if you look at Darwin's diagrams, that's supposedly what we did. So, yeah.
And it's interesting. Another new subject of research that popped up recently was the link between rhesus negative, where there's no link between us and any of the kind of simian species. I'm sure if that's the kind of overarching term for all of them, and that there's a possibility that we might be cross, if we're going to go into the cross genetic breeding, the Anunnaki kind of narrative, that this avatar that we currently reside in, the rhesus negative people, is cross between the previous avatar and Sasquatch, for lack of a better term, that interdimensional being. So that was an interesting one. I'm only just kind of getting into it, at least, I believe nothing, but I'll research everything, but it's an interesting thought, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea. I'm not sure if it's panspermia. I think panspermia might be.
Yeah, panspermia is the kind of seed that comes on a meteor.
Is that an idea of a fungal thing that's
Yeah.
come from outer space and landed here?
Yeah, that holds
I think
the key to
actually. Yeah, I think we're actually from somewhere else, to be honest. I think we were at more or less the point we're at now, or possibly even more advanced when we came here a long time ago. That's I don't know, just the research I've done, that's what looks most likely to me, is that we didn't evolve we didn't develop for this climate, this planet. I don't think we wouldn't need to wear clothing if we did, right?
Yeah.
We're the only species that needs to wear clothing and look after ourselves that much and air condition our homes, and like we're that delicate. It doesn't seem to me that we're fit for this planet, to be totally honest. Yeah, so and just looking at like you said, the disconnect between us and the other primate species, and that there's a missing link, haven't you heard? Right. So I think it's possible. It's quite possible that we have come from somewhere else.
Could well be.
In some sense.
Could well be.
Yeah, and I know that's tricky. That you've got me right into my deepest fucking shit right now. Like I'm going to seem so much crazier than I actually am.
Not at all. You're in good company, brother. You're in good company. So circling back on where were we? We were talking about the experience, and then your research kind of connected you with Simon, and there was kind of lots of
and then
similarities.
Yeah, and I was just watching Simon as part of hundreds of different shit, like people I was watching at that time. So and then I had this experience, and it reminded me of Simon again, because I was like, oh, he's the only person I've heard talk about feline aliens, and so I got back into Simon's stuff, and just kept an eye on his stuff. I was a subscriber. I never paid anyone anything. I've never done a paid subscription, and I've never been anyone's Patreon.
You should never need to, really, should you? For me, and I get it. People.
That's why I love Max Egan so much, man.
Yeah, got a lot of time for Max. Yeah,
never charge anyone anything if the information's free. That's a sign of honesty to me.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there.
No, not at all. Thank you. So.
Yeah, so I was watching a lot of other researchers as well, but Simon was resonating, and he again had never gone into anything QAnon, and on the Trump issue back then he was on the fence. It was Trump could be on the side of what people call the alliance, this idea that there's people inside the government and the military that are opposed to the deep state, to the cabal groups, which I do actually believe there is. I do, like, there has to be some people in there that aren't on board with what's going on. Yeah, there's got to be. So
I've experienced white hats personally.
Yeah. So that was resonating with me back then. I think that's fair enough, and I still to this day think that's totally fair. And basically, what had happened was on one of the pages or something, I'd put up a few posts that were very popular, and Simon has a group it's a global group called Connecting Consciousness, and it has like chapters in every country. So there's a British Connecting Consciousness, there's American Connecting Consciousness, and then there will be state, like localized groups, right? And there'll be the New York Connecting Consciousness, the California Connecting Consciousness, the over here there's the New South Wales, the Queensland, the Victoria Connecting Consciousness. And the way it's structured is there's a coordinator for
Franchising
each.
it right up.
Beg your pardon?
Franchising it right up.
Yeah. And to be honest, this kind of, even from the get-go, felt a bit strange to me that it was so organized and like this global group. But at the time, basically the way it worked was they would do, I don't know, what do you call it? Like a function, like a conference, I guess, where they'd pick a couple of speakers and the speakers would come and talk. You'd have a nice lunch and there'd be like maybe a meditation, things like that. And then there'd be like Facebook pages and groups where people would be sharing info, which I think is a pretty common way for things to operate in the truth community when people get into groups. Now, as an ex-modern Satanist and a spiritual individualist, the idea of joining up with a group that just felt strange, and that's always what felt strange. So I never did until I was invited to actually be a coordinator myself, because I don't know why. I guess I just posted something that someone liked. So the coordinator of Australia had just lost their New South Wales coordinator, which is my state, and that's a state of where Sydney's the capital, I guess, of New South Wales. So that's the Sydney area, and of course it goes way out into the bush and stuff. But it's like Sydney, Newcastle, Wollongong. I think it's like Byron Bay, and goes up to some of those northern areas and goes down south just before Victoria, and there's Bateman's Bay down south, and I'm sure there's a bunch more further away from me, but I'm like Sydney based. That's all I can think of right now. But yeah, so I find myself, I accept it for like, just because I'm like, oh, we'll give this a go. I've never done anything like this. Okay. So I start a Facebook group, and I'm just posting info and ideas that I've got. I'm posting some stuff about the secret space program. I'm posting about banking, like banking corruption. I'm posting about government pedophilia, these kind of things. That's sort of our area. Underground bases as well. Issues. I did a lot. Beg your pardon?
The main issues in the 3D, basically.
Yeah. I did a lot on the deep underground military bases, MK Ultra. Like most of it, if not all of it, was backed up with really solid evidence that I was posting. There was some like speculative stuff that I'd come up with myself. Yeah. And that's what I was doing. I ended up running a couple of seminars where I would speak, and I'd organize them, and they were very successful. That's about as big and as successful as the group got, because the Facebook page that I was running was very successful. And there wasn't really any top-down management from Simon or any of that. It was just, we were just like into his work at the time. Thing is, right about the time that I started doing these conferences and I took that role, that's about the time when Simon started doing the QAnon stuff.